Okay guys, I got a kind of cool video for you today. I was able to pick up a Zev Technologies Oz9C, and this is the X-Grip model, which basically gives it a 17 round capacity over the 15. I have heard quite a few things about this, but I've never been able to shoot it. They're a little bit on the pricier side, and by a little bit, I mean a lot of bit. This gun here was about 1,700 bucks, not including the optic. A lot of people are skeptical about them, just thinking it's, you know, your Gucci Glock, but I don't think it is. I'll go over a few pros and cons with you after, but for now, let's just do a little shooting. So my initial impressions of this gun when I got it, obviously I had high expectations just due to the price tag. It shoots well, it stays really consistent. I notice it's pretty easy to stay on target. I do have a couple Shadow systems, and I know this gun is similar to the Shadow, but it does have a couple differences in it. I'll go over those more when I get a little up close look at the gun. But as far as shooting goes, I'll just mention the thing you're going to notice right away if you get your hands on one is the trigger is really, really good. I'll give you an up close look at it a little later, but the trigger's super crisp for a striker fire gun. It does cycle well. I'll get into a couple issues I had earlier, and a lot of people have probably heard about this if you've done any research, which I did prior to purchasing this gun. I really wanted to get it just to see what it was all about and get a video out to you guys. Just if for some reason you guys are interested and you don't want to build a Glock, you don't want to upgrade, even some Shadows, I know a lot of people have trigger problems with those. I personally haven't, but this is absolutely a better trigger than any striker I've shot. I'm trying to think. I do have that Archon Type B that it is actually really similar, but this one here is definitely has an advantage over that. So let's do a little bit more shooting. All right, I'm gonna try a little more distance, not very far. It's about 25 yards. I'm able to group pretty well with it. That's what it's sighted at. And I was able to get, you know, about a 4 or 5 inch group with a couple flyers. So I'm just gonna be ringing aimed at steel here, and we'll see how many I can get on target. So shooting a little quicker. Sorry about that, a little bit of camera issues. We're fighting our darn gimbal thing, but that's part of the deal. Anyway, shooting a little bit quicker. It's more me kind of getting off target, but when I really focus and take my time, the gun groups really, really well. And I did notice when I was on paper, I didn't have many flyers, so I had a couple, and once I sighted in with just resting, obviously my grouping's gonna be a lot tighter there. But sorry about the noise here, guys, but when it came down to really taking my time and focusing freehand like that, the gun shoots really well, and it does stay really consistent. Over the Shadow, I notice I'm a lot more consistent and accurate with this. I'm able to bring it back down on target quicker, and that could be just the gun fits me better. So I'll give you a couple more views of me shooting this thing, and then we'll go over a couple of the specs on it. Obviously we talked about price, but I'll go over the trigger, pros, and obviously some cons. So we'll shoot a few more and let you know what you think. Okay guys, so I wanted to give an up close look at the Zev for you. I know I don't usually put it on a table and talk behind the camera, but I kind of wanted to go over some of the features, some of my pros and cons with the gun itself. So I'm just going to start out with, and I mentioned it before, with the elephant in the room and the price of these guns. So I was able to pick this one up here in the FDE, and this was $17.59, I want to say. And again, that did not come with the optic. So out the door between the two, you know, you're over $2,000. So that's a steep price to pay. So I did quite a bit of research before I picked this gun up, just a little bit of a backstory on why I did. So I've heard a lot of good things, and I've heard some pretty poor things due to the fact that it is an almost $2,000 gun. So you would like it to be just flawless right out of the box. So I'm going to jump into the cons right away. So a lot of research I did, I found that a lot of complaints were that the gun wouldn't fully, the gun is empty, by the way, wouldn't fully return to battery. So I saw a lot of videos where it was essentially like this, and the round would not quite fully go into battery, you know, obviously making the firearm not shoot. That was concerning at first, and I did do some reading where Zev claims it's because they have such tight tolerances. As you can see here, it might be hard to tell, the slide really just is extremely tight to the frame. So they said that, you know, you want to get it and oil it and blah, 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 which I usually do, but I'm not a huge believer in thinking that a firearm needs a break-in period, especially one that's almost $2,000. That seems obscene. So my experience, so I ran about 200 rounds through it. I had that happen twice. So basically, as I was saying, I would be shooting maybe the fourth or fifth round, it would be about here, and I would give the slide a tap forward, and we'd be back and running. So like I said, that happened about 2 to 3 times, and now I would say I have 400 rounds through it. I kind of stopped keeping track after 3, so I haven't had the problem since. Again, I'd say 1 and 2 is 1 and too many times for that to happen with a gun like this. So that was my biggest complaint and my biggest concern when I picked it up. Other than that, as far as cons go, I'm really trying to think. I don't have many. I would say that for a gun that's this expensive, I don't know what I was expecting, but the only gun I can compare it to is my Shadow, the 920. And this gun absolutely does shoot better in my opinion. The trigger, as I mentioned in the video before, is very crisp. So I pull it here and then it breaks. I mean, I'll try to get a better view of hitting the wall, but the wall is so, I mean, hair bit of creep. You can just feel the wall and it'll go. So you do have a little bit of creep there at the end after the take up, but it's so darn crisp for a striker. They have this flat face trigger, which I really like. They have the safety blade on it here, which has to be depressed, just like a lot of the guns out there nowadays. There is no manual safety on it, but the trigger is the biggest pro for me. It is really easy to stay on target, and there's not much. It doesn't upset my sight picture at all with this trigger. So couple of the things I want to go over with you, which, you know, maybe this gun is worth it, maybe it's not. You know, there's a lot of other options, but if you're interested in this, I didn't find a lot of videos on it. So we'll start with the barrel. So they do put a match grade barrel in there, and you see that dimpling in there. It's basically to keep it on target. These little things keep it so it doesn't heat up as much. That's what they say. I don't know. I didn't run 1,000 rounds through it, and I didn't start to lose grouping, but I will say that my grouping is extremely consistent for my skill set. There's a lot of guys that could run these a lot better, that's for sure, but the barrel does seem really, really good. It's that chromium stainless steel, and I know that's what a lot of people are looking for when they kind of upgrade a barrel or get into the match grade barrel if you're throwing it into a Glock or something like that. Now, it is a fully stainless steel slide, and it is machined from one single piece, so it's not anything that's plated together or anything like that, so that's nice. The grip angle here, I kind of want to go over. So it's basically a 1911 grip, so it's kind of that neutral. For me, it kind of falls pretty naturally, and again, I've mentioned this before, I do have smaller hands, and this is the X grip model, as I mentioned before, so it's a little bit longer, and you can get the Oz9C with the standard, which is 15, round capacity, which is, in my opinion, plenty. I have not carried this yet. Obviously, I have a holster for it, and I've carried it around when I'm shooting it, but I haven't concealed and carried it yet. Your attachment rail here is all aluminum, so it's not polymer like a lot of the other ones are, so that's kind of nice. It'll hold up a little bit better. As far as the grip goes, really nice. I like it a lot. I'm gonna see if you can see this here. So you have this nice indent here. You fall in there pretty comfortably. And the mag release here, they have this nice bite on it. It's not really aggressive. It's almost like a honeycomb pattern, but it does seem to work really well. This did come with the flared mag well on it. So for putting your mags in, you can kind of go at that, a little bit harsher an angle, and it goes in there just fine. To be honest, I've never had a problem with one without it, but I do like that feature. It's really nice, and I know you can do that in a lot of guns, and I can take that off as well and replace it with the standard. So when you get up to the slide here, it has really good serrations. I noticed that I was comparing the Shadow to this, and the serrations on this are really nice, and I like when they're a little bit sharper. Some people don't, but they're pretty sharp and they're really defined, so that's nice. They do have more stippling up here, right next to the takedown. And as far as mounting an optic on it, I had no issues with that. I didn't have to shim it or anything like that. This is a hollow sun here. No shimming required, mounted right up to it. You can co-witness it somewhat. I'm not a big co-witness guy. It just distracts me. So with this sight, I can lightly see the front sight, but I don't use it obviously for that reason. When it comes to the release, it's really flush in here. They have this flared a bit, as you can see. So if you're gonna conceal and carry it, it's not gonna bind up on anything like that. Now, I will mention the irons. If you're gonna run this with irons, it is about my favorite setup you can have. So they have the blacked out rear and the tritium front sight. I love that setup. The only reason I put an optic on is I'm kind of trying to switch over to running all optics on handguns. I kind of believe that that's the route everything's going. So I'm gonna mention the price again. I know a lot of people are gonna ask if it's worth it. For $1,700, I will say it's not gonna change your life. You're not gonna shoot this gun and think, wow, this is an absolute game changer. It does shoot better than the Shadow in my opinion, but the Shadow is a great gun. And I will tell you, I've never had a problem with the Shadow cycling. With this one, I've had a couple. And like they even mention it in the manual. It says something about that the tolerances are very tight, and I don't know if that's them trying to cover their tracks for when you do inevitably have problems. And I have heard some people didn't, and some people constantly do. And like I was saying, you can see the distance here between the slide. One thing you'll notice if you look at a Shadow up close, you can see the spring on the inside, and you can almost bite it down and close that gap more. So a lot of people don't love that, but I get why they do it. It's gonna be reliable, it's gonna cycle constantly, but you do have a little bit more room to get debris, dirt, stuff in there like that. But a lot of us aren't gonna be carrying it in a situation or where you're gonna get a lot of that in there. But reliability is a huge thing when it comes to carrying a weapon. You want it to go off every single time, and that's one reason why I haven't carried it yet, is I really wanted to get through about 600-700 rounds without one single hiccup, because that's not the time you want a hiccup in the gun. So basically my final thoughts on it are, I love it. It's an awesome shooter. It's really cool. A lot of kind of high-end things on it that you would have to upgrade on even a Shadow. I know a lot of people complain about gritty Shadow triggers. I don't really notice that, but I tell you, when I do shoot these two back to back, this is hands down better for a striker fire pistol. And as I mentioned earlier on in the video, sorry for the lack of uploads. We've kind of had a lot of things going on. I am trying to get out as many uploads as I can. I'm trying to reach out to a couple companies to get to do optics reviews, a couple firearm manufacturers to see if I can get a little support. So, because it does get expensive buying all these guns, but I do want to get content out there and I want to continue to grow. That being said, I wanted to mention that the Stoeger is still up for giveaway. So we're about halfway to our goal. Once we get to that 1,000 subscribers, I'll be giving it away to one of you. And I know I've mentioned the regulations in that you have to be legal to own a firearm and purchase one, pass a background check, and it has to be shipped to an FFL no matter what. It can't go straight to you, nothing like that. So if you guys are a subscriber and we hit 1,000, one of you is gonna win it. This isn't a gimmick, nothing like that. I am absolutely giving it away, and I would like to do more giveaways like this with higher end guns, optics, things like that. I just have to have the channel grow a little bit, but for now, guys, I really appreciate the support. It's really awesome that you guys, reach out to me, and I know I still have a lot of growing to do with the channel, but I plan on making this thing as good as we can. So thanks for the support, and until next time.